Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. And it's time to talk about the Rings of Power, Episode 8, Alloyed. I'm here with cousin Cheeto. How you doing, mate?
Excited to talk about the season finale of the first of five.
Yeah, me too. I would have to say that I'm not sure how people initially feel about this particular series, but I do think it did kind of stick the landing to a degree. I thought this final episode was pretty good, arguably the best episode of the season. I'm not sure how you feel.
I would not say it's the best episode of the season, but I would definitely say that they did stick the landing this episode.
Okay, dokie. So I want to say hello to Truck Station 5. How you doing, mate? Welcome to the stream. Hopefully more people will be joining us for this particular broadcast. So before we start talking about this episode and breaking it down, how have you felt about this particular season and this, overall?
Me,
Yeah.
um, as someone who is not steeped, actually, I feel like that the series has actually been more enlightening to me than anything else. I've really dug in the past since about episode three. I think I've really started digging into like the Tolkien lore and like what the what the Samarillion and all the other appendices say and stuff like that. And although I'm not upset when they do make changes to those things for the show's sake, I have been enlightened a lot about what like how massive the Tolkien verse is. It's so I would say I wouldn't say that I'm like super floored by this series, but I would definitely say that it's a franchise that I just have severely underestimated um, in years past. Like I mean, I would say that the honestly, the Lord of the Rings is probably bigger right now, or is bigger than the MCU is currently. Like, and I mean and I'm not talking about movies. I'm talking about like scope and scale, and because there's gods involved, and there's before creation, after creation, even the first, second, third age, Morgoth, like all this stuff is just it's so massive. So I'm trying to absorb as much of it as possible. And although I know right now with the season finale happening and the next season not coming out until possibly 2024, I mean, there's probably going to be a lull in that, but I'm going to keep trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Dive into, some of the Tolkien lore as I come across it and keep on things that interest me in the Tolkien lore. And stuff like that, but yeah, no, honestly, as I said, I won't say that this was like a mind blowing series. I wouldn't say that this is something that like makes me want to watch more Lord of the Rings, but it definitely was enlightening.
Yeah, I'd agree. I I myself was very patient with this particular show. I saw the first couple of episodes and I thought, okay, this is different. And then I thought to myself, just give it a chance. With getting new characters in. Rome wasn't built in a day, all of that. But as we were progressing, I think I told you by episode 5, I'm thinking to myself, I'm really feeling like we need a big fucking battle here, and we didn't get one until episode 6. Saying that, but I just felt maybe we should have got some moments of of your wham bam, thank you man, the sort of action set pieces that were smothered all over the Peter Jackson trilogies. You had your moments where shit hit the fan, and you needed that in this particular show. I'm not saying that every episode has to be a thrill ride, but I did feel that after 6 episodes that we finally got pretty much a whole episode dedicated to action. That not to get any action prior to that, I thought was a disservice because as much as people love the lore, they love the action and adventure. That's what you get when it comes to fantasy, sword and sorcery, all of that. And we didn't get very much of that. We got Galadriel maybe in episode 1, basically one on her own defeating a troll while her fellow elves can't do shit. But other than that, it wasn't until we got to episode 6. I just felt a little bit of a disconnect because there was so much world building, so much character development over the top, in my opinion. But eventually, once things started kicking off in episode 6, the show did get better. I think the last 3 episodes, 6, 7, and 8, have been the standout episodes of this particular season, and I thoroughly enjoyed this final episode, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, I like, you know how, like, when we say, you know, when they give us more than one episode in the season premiere of something, and we say, but you know, we get like episodes 1 and 2 of that season. We're like, oh, I'm so glad they gave us episodes 1 and 2 because that really made it a much better season. In Lord of the Rings case, I really feel like we should have had the first 2 seasons in one go. Like I really, because I really feel like you're right. They did a lot of lore building in those first 6, 7 episodes, and then, or I'm sorry, the first 5 episodes, and then 6, 7, and 8 were really the ones were kicked into high gear. And it's almost like I kind of wish they would have filmed seasons 1 and 2 back to back, and kind of like seasons 1 and 2 were kind of, I don't want to say continuous. They could have taken a small break in between there, but I really do feel like, you know, like, on, as everything Lord of the Rings is on a much larger scale, I feel like the first 2 seasons probably would have been much better served being closer together, because now it's like, you're right, like, you know, like with WandaVision is the best example. Like if you watch episode 1 of WandaVision, you're not, you know, we got what, episodes 1 and 2 when it first came out. That's my best recent example is WandaVision. You got episodes 1 and 2, but it's like if you just watch episode 1, you're not even getting, you know, into like you're just chipping the iceberg of what you're getting into. So you have to watch episode 2, and even episode 3 is really when you finally get an understanding of what's going on and the scale of what's happening. And so, or Andor, actually, Andor is a more recent example because we got the first
Yeah,
3 episodes.
Andor did it really well, in my opinion. I think getting the first 3 episodes really, really helped that series to give us an idea of what it's all about.
Which honestly, yeah, I agree. Like, so Andor, like getting us those first 3 episodes, so we could just binge all three and get thoroughly invested in what was happening, where Andor was at, and where it's going, was a very, very good way of doing it. And that's why I'm kind of like, I really feel like on the scale of Lord of the Rings, I really feel like if we did a season 1 and a 2, like almost back to back, maybe taking a month or two off, like in between seasons, but like I really feel like we don't truly have the scale of what's happening, because yes, there were a lot of reveals in this episode, but you're right, like episodes 1 through 5 were just world building, and it was just kind of like, I've said episode 1 was a slog for me because I didn't understand what was happening, because I'm not back, you know, even now per se, I'm not a huge Tolkien fanatic, but I'm like, I definitely now have a much better understanding of the Tolkien lore than I did back in episode 1. So I'm actually going to go back and watch episode 1 now that this is finished, and I'm going to actually be like, oh, I know that now. I know that now. I know that now. I know that now. Oh, I don't know that. What is that? And then that'll kind of be, you know, my lead in. But yeah, like I almost kind of wish, as I said, we got to wait 2 years for the next, and it's like, whew. And it's like, not that I'm excited to like get season 2. I'm okay to wait for something to be done as long as it's good. But I really feel it's kind of like Lord of the Rings itself. All 3 movies, weren't they filmed back to back? Like I feel
They were
like
all
this is,
filmed back to back. I mean, they would when Peter Jackson was making them, he was like different days they would be doing different movies.
yeah.
They weren't doing the same thing all the time. Which
No, I understand.
is
Go ahead.
it's kind of a remarkable achievement if you think about those films. With the amount of people, so doing it that particular way and still making an absolute masterpiece. Welcome, William Wells.
And I agree. So I don't expect them to film all 5 seasons back to back, but like maybe go for broke and do seasons 1 and 2. You know what I mean? Like, because I really feel like we've just hit the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we've just got big reveals at the end of this, where, you know, we'll get into the breakdown. Spoilers, by the way. I don't know if we've done that.
Oh yeah, we're going to be doing loads of spoilers, and I just want to say as well, before we do the breakdown, we finally got some Rings of Power. I mean, it took until the last 5 minutes of the final episode of the season, but finally, some Rings of Power.
And one thing I didn't know about those Rings of Power is that they were untouched by Sauron. So I always assumed that
Well,
the 3 rings
he
of
did.
the elves were also influenced by Sauron.
He
But
did touch.
apparently,
He did get his hands on that mithril, which was in you, and he chipped a bit off the mithril, by the way, as well. I'm not sure if you noticed that.
it's probably
So
what he's going to use to make the One Ring.
the One Ring, yeah, for sure. So okay, so we're gonna break down this episode now and talk about it. Anyone in the chat, anyone as well as yourself, Cheeto, have anything to say regarding certain things within this episode? Let me know. So we start with this episode 8, Alloyed, with Feminem and her co finding Meteor Man. and calling him Sauron. Now, I have to say, well, but by the way, first of all, welcome, Vic Saxon. Welcome to the stream. Nice to see you, sweetheart. How you doing?
Oh, hey.
Yeah, I know. I can't stay for too long because I have a call at 2, but yeah. At least I can be here.
Well,
No problem.
give us your thoughts on the season finale then. So just in case if you have to bebop out.
I mean, oh, it's Brutus.
Booty.
I I enjoyed the whole series, but the part of the problem is that I don't really have a basis for comparison. I haven't read the Silmarillion, so I can only take what the series gives me. So I don't know what they might have tweaked or altered completely. I don't know how accurate it is to the source material. So whatever. I mean, I enjoyed watching it and everything, but I'm sitting there, I was sitting there at the end, and I kind of knew the fellow that ended up being that turned out to be Sauron. I suspected there was something up with him the entire time, but they wrote it well enough that it's like, no, I don't want to leave Numenor. I want to stay here. I would just want to sort of fade out into quiet be anonymous. I couldn't say anonymous. I can't. There was a word that popped into my head that I can't say.
Well, they left it vague actually. In a way, it was good to a lot of people did have their.
They did.
They did think he was Sauron, but
I would have put money down that he was Sauron, but I agree. They did try to throw you curveballs in there, and they did it in a story way. They didn't hand fist it to you.
They did it well enough that the creepy orcish guy that looked enough like an elf that I'm just like
Adar.
Yeah, Adar. Sorry, I'm bad with names, but that was who I was almost that was a good misdirect, because anyone casually watching the show probably would have been like, okay, I know who the main baddie is. It's just like, no, it wasn't. It was the other fellow that you kind of sympathized with, because he had been in the way that he wrote himself was, I'm in a war-torn place, I'm just trying to be in exile and find a place that's quiet and just stay there. The thing that gave it away for me was that he was so obsessed with smithing, and I'm like, I know that Sauron makes the rings of power, and this dude has way too much interest in smithing, and he's the only one that really does. I mean, you have Sarah Rimbor, but I
didn't think it was him.
But I was like, this dude has way too much interest in smithing, and I know that Sauron makes the rings, and this is supposed to precede the making of the rings of power and everything. So I'm like,
Okay, just gonna quickly go into the chat here. I think maybe the spell check kicked in for William Wells. I wish they make a movie about the Samaritan. Well, there is a movie on the Samaritan, also on Amazon Prime. I may add, starring Sylvester Stallone. But I don't think you meant that. I think you mean the Silmarillion. But yes, spell check. What a drab. Wrestling Lowdown also says hello, guys, and hello to you, Wrestling.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm going to do a quick breakdown of this episode. Anytime you guys want to intervene and let me know about certain parts that you want to expand on, please do. So we start off this episode with what we like to call Feminem. You know who Feminem is, Rick Jackson?
Oh, shit. I mean,
Feminem is those three women, who wear white.
And one of
them's got short blonde hair.
Yeah, okay.
All
right.
That's Feminem. Eminem, Feminem. You get me? All right. So yeah, Feminem and Co.
the phenomena. No, wait, that's not the right word.
Yeah. So Feminem and Co. find Meteor Man and call him Sauron. And I have to admit, when this happened, I thought, oh shit, we were all wrong. It's him all along. You know
no, I knew it was Gandalf.
I would say it's not Gandalf. I would say it's a blue wizard.
Maybe a blue wizard, yeah. This guy's eating my joypad right now. All right. So that was a bit of but nevertheless, at that particular time, it was like, oh shit, what the hell's going on here? We see cutting back to the Elf City, which his name escapes me. We see Galadriel and Halbrand, and the elves basically heal Halbrand. I think this is a a ploy and a scheme by Hellbrand to get to this place where the forging is done of the rings and so on, and maybe to get some ideas and stuff like that. As Hellbrand is healing, he goes to visit Celebrimbor, and he kind of charms him a little bit. You know what I mean? I want to see Celebrimbor. This is his workshop, and I heard he's like a badass motherfucker. But then he sees the gemstones of Valinor. I'm not sure if you guys know anything about that.
Vaguely.
I'm not so sure, but apparently they have like mystical powers into it. And he also sees the Mithril, which in a way almost became like a One Ring in itself, because he has the Mithril and Celebrimbor wants to take it back off him. And then Halbrand kind of suggests, instead of like trying to stretch the Mithril out and try to make something out of this little tiny piece, why don't you alloy it with other metals? It's amazing how Celebrimbor, with all those years of wisdom, has never thought of that before. But
I thought that was. I was like, I'm like, really? You never thought of that? Like, okay. I mean, but here's the thing. I mean, elves are very close-minded a lot of the times. So I mean, maybe he just didn't think of it because they're not used to having their metallurgy not being enough for something. You know what I mean? Like they always think that all of their stuff is master class. So that's why at the end, towards the end of the episode, they're saying, well, the alloy, or what we alloy it to, has to be of the highest purity, which is from Valinor. So that was my thinking by the end of the episode. But I agree with you. When he first said that, I'm like, you didn't think about that? Like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
yeah, you're a smith. Yeah, you know what I mean, alloying and shit like that is what you guys do. Yeah. Anyway,
the reason I was actually willing to accept the non-alloy thing was that the elves, the way that they're kind of written, was that they really, until their tree, which is symbolic of like, the well-being of their people and everything, started to actually wither away and die, like they really hadn't, it's kind of written in a way that's like they haven't really struggled that much. They haven't like lacked for anything. So it's, like they wouldn't have had to, if they haven't struggled and they haven't lacked for anything, they haven't had to alloy anything. They haven't had to think about that. They haven't had to stretch anything out. But the humans have. And Halbrand is actually, has passed himself off as human. So it's just like, hey, I come from a place where, we don't have a lot of this resource. So we learn to make it work.
Well, and here's a theory on a crazy theory that I heard, and I actually, this would be pretty ballsy of them. Actually, the Halbrand that we've met up until the creation of Mount Doom has not been Sauron. Yeah. They're saying in the second season, like what they could do is in the wreckage of the town and everything, where they found Halbrand and he because they didn't show them finding him. He was just there. So some people are saying that like somehow through some way they find like Halbrand's dead body, and Sauron from the creation of Mount Doom on was Halbrand, because he was going with Galadriel and he wanted to go with the
that's actually that's pretty good actually.
That would be a very nice.
So they're saying somehow though, like maybe when Halbrand's on his way back through Mordor, he'll stop in that town or something and look over and like look at the dead body of the actual Halbrand. So the Halbrand that rescued Galadriel from, like the one that we've been watching for all this time up until the creation of Mordor, was actually a person. But
a con man though, because he pretended to be king. He wasn't supposed to be king. If you remember, I mean,
he was very reluctant. He was very reluctant, and then he was like, "I will be your king," because I think he knew that something was going on with his people in Mordor. So he was just like, "I'm along for the ride on this one." Or no, that's before the creation of Mount Doom, but no, more. I would think more that would be like he's just kind of like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll be a king, I guess. I mean, as long as I can, call someplace my home and yada yada. And then after that, he was very. I don't. I mean, there are some holes in this theory, obviously, but still, I would not.
It could be answered definitely in the second season quite easily.
Yeah. So
I mean, because it's still for me like, how the hell does he end up on a boat? I mean, if that's not the case. That still needs to be answered. Like, where was he before being on a wreckage with all those those survivors, in the middle of the fucking ocean? I'm not sure if I said this already. I think he's a blue wizard too. They are from the runes. Why I hear about blue wizards, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And
there's
he
not
likes
a
that
lot.
theory.
Yeah, there's not a lot of blue wizard. Like, there's not a in
only
Tolkien lore.
two,
There's
isn't there?
not a lot mentioned about the blue wizard, so that's why. And it is said that the blue wizards do head out east to Rune. So a lot is tracking that this is going to be a blue wizard. They don't think it's Gandalf, and there is a quote from Gandalf in Lord of the Rings that does say that he's never been out east, or he doesn't have a name. Like, he has many names in the west and in the south, but he doesn't have any names in the east because he dares not tread there, or something like that. I don't remember. So there is evidence. There's a lot of evidence to point to blue wizard. Plus, blue wizards originally came in the Second Age, where in the Second Age, Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast didn't come till the Third Age. So if they're following Tolkien lore, then technically this should be a blue wizard. As I said, they may be changing it to make it that Gandalf came earlier, but still, I think their best bet is blue wizard.
I had that theory that Tom Bombadil's a blue wizard, but we'll never know. I mean, Tolkien's not around, unfortunately, to let us know. But well, anyway.
Here's the thing with Tolkien. He says a lot of things a lot of times, like Akira Toriyama, though. Like, he like the blue wizards initially, and it's mentioned in the Lord of the Rings or the Silmarillion that they all five came at the same time. The two blue wizards and then the three others. They came at the same time in the Third Age. Then he went back and said, no, the blue wizards came earlier. So, like it's like a Dragon Ball thing where it's like Akira Toriyama. He just kind of changes things.
Yeah, he retcons his own shit all the time.
Yeah. So I can't say he does it as much as Akira Toriyama, but he definitely does it. So go ahead, Sam.
Okay, so Isildur's sister, whose name escapes me, draws a picture of the dying
Emma Watson.
Yeah, well, she
looks a lot like Emma Watson.
Well, she draws she and several other people are allowed to draw pictures of the king, who looks like. Do you think Vizak said that the king looks like Noam Chomsky? Am I the only one who thinks that? If you see, the first thing I saw, I thought
he looks like Father Time.
Yeah, for sure. But she's allowed to draw a picture of him. They'll have like an hour at a time to draw a picture of him, and then that particular moment, the king wakes up, grabs her arm, mumbles some shit, thinks that she's somebody else, and then leads her to
he thinks
his
she's
daughter,
like his
daughter.
Yeah, and then like shows her a secret passage, and he enters that passage, and then we see what's the name of that crystal ball thing? I forgot what it's called.
A Plantier.
Yeah, Plantier.
Plantier. Okay, that's a weird name for it, but yeah. I mean, we don't really see it because it's covered in a veil, but
yeah,
it's that, isn't it? I mean,
it was revealed in episode 2 or 3 that's what it was.
Yeah.
I think it was 2.
Yeah, because Galadriel looked through it as well, and that it was underneath the thing that she revealed. But we know that is kind of like a two-way viewing porthole. Like it's like you can see through it, and it can see through you. So
Middle Earth FaceTime, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So the elves.
When you stare at the Plantier stares back.
Well, and it also can show you the future and the past. That's why the king went mad, and that's actually why the Rohan king Theoden went mad as well, because he looked through the Plantier as well a lot. And when you do that, like, all of time kind of starts to blend together, like future, present, and past all start to kind of blend together, and that's where the madness comes from. That's where Theoden was like.
Was it the Rohan king, or was it Denethor?
No, the Rohan king.
Denethor was just a dick.
He was a steward.
Yeah, it was a dick. Yeah.
I thought she was Emma Watson. She looked like her, but the actress name is I didn't think. I mean, until you mentioned it. I mean, even then, maybe it's a tiny bit. But
no,
anyway.
She looks a lot like Emma Watson. But wow, her actual name is Emma. Also, man, that's pretty.
Because they two Emmas.
It's pretty on the.
So the elves decide how best to use the mithril. The king is concerned of the decay of the tree, foretelling the elves' future, and feels crafting something from mithril to save them is a bit too late. Elrond basically talks the king around, and with the help of Brimbor, they start crafting. Now Galadriel, she's kind of suspicious of Halbrand and tells a servant elf to find information on the line of the Southland kings. And then at that particular moment, Halbrand comes in, starts thanking her. There's a bit of flirtation going on between the two of them. And he kind of thanks Galadriel for like believing in him when no one else did, not even himself. But yeah, you could tell he's like, you could tell that con man thing is going on here. Like he really is a proper con man, Hellbrand.
Mhm.
So Feminem, we're going back to Feminem and Co. And Feminem and Co. are trying to make Meteor Man know who he is. And they kind of start doing all these enchantments and stuff. And then they feel that somebody's watching them, and it's the Half-Foots, but the Half-Foots are like full, in camouflage mode, hiding and all of that. And they see Meteor Man being tied up on the tree by two of Eminem's crew, and then they try to save Meteor Man, but it's an ambush. It's the old bait and switch, because Meteor Man being tied up is actually Feminem herself, and at this particular point, Mr. Barrows gets fatally wounded. I was like, oh no, not Lenny Henry, not Lenny fucking Henry. You can't be killing my man Lenny Henry, mate. You know what I mean? But fine, they stabbed him. And then we have a little bit of a back and forth between everyone.
Again, they kill the black dude first. I don't know what. Just like in Andor, like what is going on? Anyway, keep going.
There's still Meteor Man, like, he gets a pep talk from Nori by saying, because like he's worried that he's a bad person, but Nori says, you become who you're supposed to be. You're not, be what you want to be. You don't have to be a bad person. And then he grabs one of the Feminem's staffs and uses it against them. And as he uses it, you can they look like ring wraiths. They look like the Nazgul. You know what I mean? Like if you had the ring on, as he's like hitting them with light, and they start to disintegrate, and a fucking butterfly comes out their head. And he kills them. He goes, I am good. He's like, I need to tell you I'm good because I am good. So yeah, I am.
And they
good.
also call him an Ishtari, which is what
Wise One.
Yeah, Wise One or Wizard, which is what the five wizards are, and actually what Sauron is too. He's an Ishtari. Because Gandalf, Saruman, Sauron, like all those they're all the same. Like they're all the same race. So they're technically not, humans or elves or anything like that. They're actually like lower. To quantify, they're like lower, like they're angels.
Yeah.
Like to the gods. So.
And then like we have a weird moment because like old Mr. Barrows, he looks like he's apparently dying, even though he doesn't really look like he's dying. But apparently he's dying. This is my last trail and all of that, and I'm gonna just sit here and watch the sun. Like you're stabbed, mate. But I'm sure we could help you. It's not like it was, but I've seen worse than that. They could have helped him, but nevertheless, he wants to die, and then he starts feeling a bit ill, and he falls asleep on the rock as they watch the sun come up, and that's it. He's done. You would have thought maybe fucking Meteor Man could have done some of his tricks to maybe help him, but no. All right. And I was like, oh no, Lenny Henry. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys know, he's like a famous British comedian in the UK.
I've seen him in something before. I just don't remember.
It was called True Identity, I think, or something like that. He did try to crack America, and he tried one film in America, but it flopped hard. Where he plays a black guy he plays a black comedian in America who pretends to be a white guy. Once he sees the mob like to commit a crime, he goes under federal protection, and they make him look like a white guy. And it's fucked. The film absolutely flopped, unfortunately. And then he came back to England because that's where his brother Button was. He's done a few shows. He's a stand-up comedian. He's done a lot of television comedy shows and stuff like that. But to see him in this made me very happy because I thought, he deserves to be in something big. All right. So Callum, sorry, I apologize. Elendil and the Queen have a heart-to-heart. They're both suffering and mourning. Elendil says that he will support the Queen regardless of what's happening. And as they arrive back to Numenor, they see the black flags raised, which means, and it was funny, like so many times the Queen was going, what's happening? And he's just not saying shit. What's happening? He's not saying shit. Like, what the fuck, man? Your Queen's demanding to know what the fuck is happening.
It's like you had this whole scene where she was trying to like mark out her paces beforehand on the underside of the, oh dear, I'm getting my call, sorry.
Okay,
All right.
Jackson, thanks very much for joining. We'll see you later.
I'm sorry, I can't finish that thought. I'm
No
sorry.
problem.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, she had to do
Yeah.
some university stuff, so we had to let her go.
Edward Kenway had come to Numenor. That's what I took away from that. All the black flags.
Well, the black flags meant that the king is dead.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm just making sure other people know. Yeah, Edward Kenway. Yeah, I get it. Anyway, Kellen Brimble is struggling to meld the mithril to other metals, and Hellbrand is just maybe trying a more softer approach instead of trying to force the alloys together. Ease it in.
Whisper it to it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Use that cool voice.
So so that's what they'll end up doing. Galadriel finds out about Halbrand, and he's not who he seems he is, and demands to know who he really is. And the veil comes off, but as Galadriel tries to attack Halbrand, she's put into a memory trap, and we see her with her brother, and she gets out of that. Then she's at sea with Halbrand, and Halbrand says that he became free with the death of Morgoth, who was his master. And he wants Galadriel to be his queen. And in his reflection in the water, we see Sauron, where Hellbrand stands. And we kind of knew this was coming the moment, he kind of reminded me of that time where Triple H was investigating who attacked Shawn Michaels, and it was Triple H all along. Remember that storyline?
No,
and then
what? I do
it was
not
old
remember
school.
that one.
Like somebody attacked Shawn Michaels, and this is where Triple H was a face. And then we find out through the footage that it was Triple H all along, even though he's doing the investigation. It was Triple H who attacked Shawn Michaels, and then Triple H sends us a smile. You got me. You know what I mean? It was me and all that sort of shit. Anyway, regardless, we see the reflection of Sauron where Hellbrand stands in the water, and that obviously confirms that Hellbrand is Sauron. And as she
also,
tries
those
to
eyes,
yeah.
Did you see that? Like that very quick flash of those eyes with the slit pupils. I was like, oh shit.
And as she tries to kill Sauron again, but I'm going to refer to him as that pretty much now. We see her drowning in the ocean, but a voice of Elrond wakes her up from her trance, and then she almost kills Elrond until she finds out Elrond is Elrond, and she's not in another dream.
Well, I mean, it's a good idea. I mean, because they know that Sauron can change his form and everything like that. So it'll be very interesting, as I said, with the theory that I said earlier. It'll be very interesting if he just took on that form, or if that's actually how he was like reincarnated. His spirit, because the thing about the Istari is that they can't like die per se. They can be their physical bodies can be killed, but they don't necessarily, their soul doesn't die, their spirit doesn't die. It takes them a while to reconstitute, but they will come back.
Well, but it still needs to be answered that why did if this person did take over from Halbrand after the creation of Mount Doom, then the real Halbrand still said that he was a Southland king, even though he wasn't when they looked at the parchment paper and they found out. So I just think, yeah, of course you would, dude. I'm glad you did. At least somebody fucking remembered it.
What year was it? Was that 2000s or was that 98?
We're talking like Ruthless Aggression era when Shawn Michaels came back.
So I didn't watch it. I in between like 2001 and like 2004. I didn't watch. So that's
probably around about that time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I that's why I never saw it, because I didn't watch during that era when Brock Lesnar started coming in and all and American Badass, Undertaker. Anyway, tangent.
Okay, so yeah, no problem. So she's obviously worried about what to help Sauron is now doing, so she runs to the workshop. Fortunately for her, Halbrand's not there, but for some reason she's keeping the fact that Halbrand is now Sauron to her chest. She's not telling them. I think it's because it'll incriminate her, maybe.
I also agree with you. That's what I was going to say. I really feel like it would incriminate. She feels like it would incriminate her because she basically led Sauron right into the heart of the Elves.
Yeah, she did, yeah. And manipulate them as well in creating the rings and all that sort of stuff. So Galadriel tells Celebrimbor and Elrond not to do dealings with Halbrand again. as they forge the rings. Now they decide to make 3 rings because 1 will corrupt, 2 will divide, but 3 will bring balance. I don't know about balance, but at least they were right about 1 will corrupt, 2 will divide. So yeah, 3 is a good idea. It's fair enough. Meteor Man then tells Nori he has a journey to make to find his purpose. And as Nori says goodbye, the rest of the Half-Foots insist that Nori goes with Meteor Man. Poppy becomes a trail finder because she can read a map, and maybe she'll take them to the Shire. And then by this particular time, Meteor Man is already speaking proper English now. He's no longer like mumbling and bumbling. You know, he knows all the words and everything. I think he kind of got woken up from a spell, maybe, to find out who he truly is. But yeah, he's got at this particular point now. He's got all the elements of those loving wizards. You know, whether it be Gandalf or Radagast or whoever it may be. Even Saruman wasn't that bad before he turned to evil. So 3 will be bad. Well, you know, if you see in the Peter Jackson film, you know, they made several rings. 3 were for the elves, the wisest of the land. You know, 7 were for the dwarfs, you know, craftsmen. 9 were for men.
That's why we keep Ginger around. You know, three brings balance. You know, so.
But we did have a 3rd ring in Vizaxen, but unfortunately she had to depart.
And now we're screwed.
Yes, now we're divided. So as I said, so it looks like maybe Poppy will take them to the Shire. Do you think? You know, she'll lead them that direction?
Maybe. I mean, it depends on if they go with Tolkien lore or if they go their own way. I mean, technically, the Harfoots aren't supposed to make it up towards that because they do migrate that way, and they eventually settle where in like right around the area where what's the pub that they were in right outside the Shire?
The Prancing Pony.
Yeah, the Prancing Pony area, and then they eventually settle in like the Shire.
Is that Bree?
Yeah, that's Bree. You're right. It's Bree.
Yeah.
So like right there in Bree, and then eventually. So I mean, they've still got a far bit west to go because they're technically like not. They're still north of the Southlands. Like they're nowhere near the Shire right now. They still have to go through the Misty Mountains or even south.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I mean, maybe one day they'll get there. I just don't think it's going to happen in the show. If it does, then whatever. I mean, we're not following them anyway, according to where season 2 is supposed to be taking us.
I don't even know where the fuck Meteor Man's going. I mean, like, he's just trying to basically find his who he is, isn't he? Like, that's why he's going that particular direction. But and about mentioning about following your nose, which is a very Gandalf thing, by the way.
Yeah, but here's the other thing: is that you know, I think that because they called him Sauron, as a Ishtari, they are supposed to come and stop Sauron, like that's their purpose there. The wizards, and obviously through time that obviously gets, you know. So I think that what he's doing is because those people said that they were from Rune to the east. And he's supposed to stop Sauron. He's kind of putting 2 and 2 together, and that's where he feels like, well, I got to go this way and try to figure out about Sauron because Sauron's like, I mean, he may not know about Sauron, but it's maybe like a trigger word for him where he's like, wait, that's something I have to investigate because I'm not Sauron, but that is a person that I need to figure out about.
Well, look, I'm. At first, I wasn't 100% sure if he was Gandalf, and I think he could be. And I know people are saying he could be a blue wizard, but in my opinion, the blue wizards are already there. We just haven't come across them yet, and we might just see them in season 2. And I just feel like the fact that the way he is with way Gandalf is with the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies, you know, this kind of like this particular show is kind of making you understand why he's so fond of them. I mean, they saved him. You know, I mean, they made him. You know, they stopped him from being evil. He could have embraced Feminem and co, and gone down that dark path, but he didn't. So I feel that this could be Gandalf, in my opinion.
And as I said, if it is Gandalf, it's not bad. You're right. It is a good way to endear Gandalf to the hobbits, you know, ancestors. But I honestly would with the Blue Wizards though, like yes, Gandalf is a more notable name, but with the Blue Wizards, there's not much like you can make a nice new character as well as not piss off the Tolkien fans because it's like there's not much known about the Blue Wizards besides they head out east and they do some of their work in the east, which is exactly what's happening right now. So in the Second Age. So they kind of have a playground here with this character if it is a Blue Wizard to do what they want, and not piss off the Tolkien fans.
And the Lord Saruman comes in the Third Age, and he kind of disposed of the two blue wizards, never to be seen again. Yeah, well,
that I did not know.
Yeah, Saruman, Count Dooku, they're very similar, aren't they? Yeah. No wonder Christopher Lee played them. Anyway, we finally see the rings being forged and using the mithril and the gold and the gold and silver of Galadriel's like very cool dagger. We see 3 different rings, all encrusted with the Jewel of Valinor. And then Elrond finds the scroll of the last kings of the Southland, knowing that Halbrand is someone else because he's able to decipher these things. And then we see Halbrand. I mean, he keeps that as close to himself as he sees. He's not going to like rat on Galadriel there and there, quiet you. And then finally, we see Halbrand arrive at Mordor, and with an excellent song to end about the Rings of Power, which came after that, which was a really good song, by the way. But that's when it started to feel quite Peter Jackson-y. There was some Peter Jackson moments in this episode, which I kind of like. But it really started to feel like it was coming together, just as this show is coming together. The season ends. It took a while for it to really come together, in my opinion, but it is. And I was always going to give, even though like this show hasn't been to everyone's pleasure, so to speak, I was always going to give this show a chance. If the first season is shit, what it is with filmmakers and directors and whatever is that they always listen to feedback. Especially with something like this, which is just humongously popular, and they'll try and rectify it. I do feel that the last few episodes have been very good. 6, 7, and 8 for me have been the standout episodes of this show. I hardly remember anything before that. And I'm hoping with next season that they take on board people's concerns and give us a stellar season 2. But yeah, in fact, a great way. This was my favorite episode of season 1. This episode was excellent. We want to start marking down the episodes. Oh, sorry, marking down this episode. What do you want to give it, Cheetah?
I'll give it an 8. As I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was by far not the worst episode. I don't think it's the best for me. It was not the best episode of the season, but nowhere near bad in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, no Adar, no Arondir in this episode, but I don't want to hold that against him. I do enjoy the character of Arondir, but this episode was mainly focused around the Harfoots and Meteor Man, and mainly around the elves. And revelations came in this episode. A lot of things got answered. Sometimes I would like things to be answered before the season finale. I like the payoffs to happen before the final episode. Yeah, you can do that. You can give us payoffs in episode 6. But nevertheless, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I got very emotional with this episode. I liked it that much. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I thought this episode was fucking brilliant. And
we give it 0 out of 10 Halbrands because there was no Halbrand in this episode.
He was.
Or who am I thinking of? Durin. I'm sorry. 0 out of 10 Durins.
Yeah.
Because there's no Durin in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no Durin, and Durin for most people is their favorite character, and he's one of my favorite characters. I do enjoy seeing Durin on my screen, but for the show to go as far as it did without him, yeah. I thought for it to be as good as it is without him, I have to give it a lot of credit, and it's just got me mouth watering now. Like, what's going to happen? Like, you feel like certain the pieces in place and stuff like that. And this is sequel storytelling done right, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't like. I'm glad they didn't delve into the Balrog this week because some people were saying that they might delve into the Balrog and something like that this week, and I'm very glad they didn't. I don't want them to rush through any of it. as I said, I mean, there's there were some pacing issues in the beginning, but I really feel like the last 3 episodes have been a really good payoff to the season as a whole. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, so just before we wrap things up, what are you going to give this entire season?
I think I'm going to stick with the 8. I'm going to give it, I think, an 8 out of 10. The beginning was a bit of a slog. I did. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh my
Rusty.
God, you don't have to, dude, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it so much.
I think that's our second or third super chat in our entire couple of years of doing this shit. And
Yeah.
thank you so much, Lowdown. Much appreciated.
But I as a whole, I mean, and as I said, I mean, if some of the first couple episodes were, as some of the first couple episodes were, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we're kind of a bit of a slog. The last ones were really paced well. So I think, and especially like opening up this whole new world to me of Tolkien lore and stuff like that. As I said, I don't think this show does a disservice to Tolkien lore. I mean, I know there are some differences, but I don't think it does a disservice to the movies, the books, or anything like that. And I know some people are really like getting on like the Tolkien purist side. And I understand that. I was a Spider-Man purist. If it didn't happen in the comic books the same way in the movies, I was all against it. And I eventually just had to realize that sometimes there's better storytelling and variation. And as I said, I know that the purists wanted exactly the same, but open your mind up a little bit to the story they're trying to tell, and just know that the book is the book, and this is something else. And so go ahead, Sam.
Now, even Peter Jackson's stuff, that it wasn't a directly carbon copy of the books. Like he made changes. He made a lot. He made changes. He cut shit out. Did
even in the extended editions, he cut stuff out.
Exactly, and made different people do different things. Like they weren't all doing the same things. He created new characters, all of these things. What's on the page, and that's including comic books as well as novels, doesn't necessarily translate well on film. So he didn't change the themes and values. I mean, some people say, Corey, and welcome to the stream, by the way. Some people say that that if Tolkien saw what Peter Jackson did, that he wouldn't like it. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's passed away, and I mean, we can't get his opinions on it. I don't know Tolkien as a person, like watching interviews, and I don't, or any of his like interviews and writing and stuff like that. I don't know any of that. But I can't imagine as a creator, somebody would be that opposed to somebody. Like, it's not like they took it and they like, made it into like a rom-com, like it's not like they did something like that. Like, I mean, would William Shakespeare like Leonardo DiCaprio's Romeo and Juliet? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of the comparison you're making here is like, but Lord of the Rings was written to be an epic story that made sense. And I'd rather have something that makes sense. And Peter Jackson did a great job with, even doing the extended editions. He did it a service, I feel. And I think that this show is starting, and that's just starting, is doing a service to the Tolkien verse. As I said, it may not be exactly the same, but at the same time, should it be?
Ryan Gerald says, "Sup, y'all? At work, just catching the end of the stream. Thank you very much.
Hey, we appreciate you stopping by. Catch us on the rewind."
And like one of the examples I want to give is in Return of the King, we see the death of Sauron at the beginning of the extended edition, where they go to Isengard, and that weasel guy he stabs Sauron in the back and they kill him off, and that doesn't happen in the books.
No, because the scorching of the Shire has to happen.
Yeah,
and I think that was basically Peter Jackson saying, "Look, we're not doing that." And I mean, would the scorching of the Shire been good? Yes, but would it have fit thematically? No, because that's a whole nother plot line when Frodo, Sam, and Merry and Pippin get back to the Shire. That's a whole nother ending you got to go through. And honestly, it just doesn't fit thematically. Maybe in the book it makes sense, but thematically it does not.
I totally agree, and I'm glad they didn't go down that route because with just the hobbits returning home and being, and you can see their lives have changed. That moment when they're in the bar and they're all four of them are having a drink, and all the other little hobbits are, being very jolly and just totally oblivious of what could have happened to them if those four didn't save the fucking world.
Yep.
And you can see that this whole what's happened to them has changed them, and they're no longer the same people anymore. And it was just great, the way it ended. It was just the right ending, even though it was a very extended ending. It was the perfect ending, and I very much appreciate that. What's her name? The Liv Tyler's character.
Yes.
She
Why am I blanking on her name?
oh she saved Frodo and took her to Rivendell to get healed. Yeah, in Fellowship of the Ring after he got stabbed by the Nazgul.
Arwen.
And Arwen, yeah, but that doesn't happen in the books. They do make these changes, so it's what works right for the story, what's on screen. And yes, I do agree, though. I still at the same time do agree that the themes and values still remain the same. As far as I was concerned, I mean, it's very hard to determine, how well a film, portrays a book, because because when people are reading a book, what goes into their imagination is all different. If you see different versions of Lord of the Rings, animated versions, which were made in the 70s and 80s, like the way what's a Minas Tirith looks. It looks, it's so different. It's just a castle in front of a mountain, whilst Peter Jackson's version is a castle built into a mountain. Sauron should be an archetype, not a person. This approach the showrunners seem to be taking so far and continuing season 2 based on comments they've made. It's not Tolkien. They aren't making Tolkien, but they are limited to a degree. Like, they don't have the Silmarillion to rely on.
But also in the Second Age, Sauron also transformed into his fairer form and was in Numenor. Like and within a year he was influencing the king or queen, I can't remember, of Numenor. So I mean, as I said, it's not exactly how it happened, but this is kind of like, I mean, he did make it to Numenor. He was, him and Galadriel, I don't know in the Silmarillion if they actually ever really met, but thematically it kind of made sense. And I knew once they started saying some of this stuff with Halbrand, I was like, that's got to be Sauron, because they are thematically building up to him, like, Sauron being in front of Galadriel this entire time and not seeing it, like that. So I as I said, it's not Tolkien, and I will never say that it's Tolkien, but it's still it's its own thing. It is building up to, the Battle of the Ring of Power, the Ring of Power. And I get it. Like, if you're a purist, great. But the problem is that a lot of times with the purist stuff, it just doesn't thematically make sense. And I'm not saying this is the best series on the planet. I mean, it has its issues. It has its pacings. It has some things that I think they should have done differently, even compared, to the knowledge I have now versus, what they've shown us here. But I still would love for, it's hard to explain how it's all in my head.
If I can interject, and
go ahead. Please do.
Like they could go down Token Lord, to the absolute T and explain everything to us, the way Tolkien wanted to. But at the same time, it still has to be entertaining. It's still, if the pace was at the degree, if what they showed us was the same pace as what we were getting in this particular series, but it was done in the way Tolkien wanted to, it would still be shit. Regardless of it maybe portraying, what Tolkien's vision, it has to be entertaining. It's on our screens. And my problem with this particular show, the first few episodes, it's just that it wasn't entertaining enough. It plodded along for a while, regardless of it being Tolkien lore or not. All I cared about at this particular moment was giving us that Lord of the Ring vibes in this particular universe. Not everyone has read all of these different books and stuff, but we just wanted us to feel like we were there and give us an entertaining product. So whether it was Tolkien or not, that wasn't really too interesting to me. What was interesting to me the most was, am I being entertained? And unfortunately, for the first few episodes, I wasn't. But it did stick the landing in the last three. Corey,
Oh,
Yeah, go on.
I actually want to bring up this comic because he shouldn't be a sympathetic person. He should always be a deceiver, not Tony Soprano or Walter White, as they have said. Who cares what the producers say? The vibe I got from Sauron in this is that he is a deceiver. He is the biggest and greatest bullshitter ever because
Con man.
Yeah, con man. So I wouldn't say that he's like Tony Soprano or Walter White. I would definitely say that he was deceiving Galadriel that entire time. He knew, I mean, as soon as that switch flipped, you saw it. And he knew he was caught. And that's when he was like, I'm gonna try to deceive and lie my way out of this, because even Galadriel said, he said, help me save Middle Earth. That's things you want to tell somebody who wants to like help people, but then it's just like, as soon as she said save or rule, and then he's like, oh, well, I'm caught, and he's like, well, isn't that the same thing? So
Well, she knew he wasn't who he seemed to be once she found out that he was lying about being the Southland King. So, but they shouldn't do the TV Lucifer version of a Dark Lord. Well, they have to try and give this guy character. Him walking around looking like Sauron as we know him would probably not work initially. And he has been a deceiver. He has, pretended to be other people, an elf, as we already know from some of Tolkien's lore. So this is what he's doing right now. He's pretending to be a human who weaned his way into the elf kingdom, and basically learned about forging and stuff like that, which will obviously help him craft the One Ring of Power, which I do think we might see craft in the next season.
Or they're saying that he's going to be crafting, because here's the thing: the 3 Elvish rings are made, but like the 9 rings for the humans, and I think it's however many for the dwarves. I don't remember, but those are lesser rings. Those are not as powerful as that. So what next season might be doing is it might be not only the ring, maybe the 1 ring of power at the end of the season, but I'm thinking throughout the season that Sauron is going to try to get his other rings out there. Like he's going to start to craft those rings for the men and the dwarves, and and start to get them out there so that he can start controlling the characters of Middle Earth, because he wants to have that domination over all of them. So because we still have a lot of rings to make, those 3 won't really have the influence of Sauron on them, because he never really touched them. And so I think it also goes to
I hope we're all right. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I just want it to be good. That's all that matters. Whether it follows Tolkien to a T, or they put their own stuff in there, like creating characters like Arendelle and stuff. Who, let's be honest, he's been reasonably popular with a lot of people who've been watching this show. He is, and people were complaining about a black elf and stuff like that. Those things are so irrelevant in fantasies. Black hobbits, or all those things. They're so irrelevant when it comes to fantasy. What matters the most is good storytelling, and that's been a little bit of my issue with this show so far. But as I said before, it's been all right the last few episodes. Wrestling Lowdown says there are 5 seasons total. There's a lot to play with and course correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And even though they probably had an idea of what they're going to be doing for these 5 seasons, I'm sure that they will adjust course here and there and retcon or whatever. It's going to be interesting. With Adair and Sauron, they're going to be coming to arms. Next season, we're going to probably see them fight each other, because I'm sure Adair probably wants to be the leader of the orcs and the king of the mountain, so to speak. He helped create what has happened, and then Sauron just walks in and goes, I'm going to just take over this shit. They're going to kick off against each other. It's not going to happen like that. So Corey Cassell says, I hope they're not going with the great anti-hero version with understandable human motivations. Are you talking about Halbrand?
No.
Sauron?
Yeah, I think that's what she's talking about.
No.
And I don't think so. I don't think that's what they're going for.
You saw with his, when he was talking to Galadriel, he wants to be a ruler, and all of that. He was playing people like him, they play the long con, because the guy is like, he's been around since the beginning of time. He can do a long con, because a long con for him would be like, will feel like seconds. Corey Cassell also says Adar is actually my favorite. He has a hero's arc. We'll see about that. I'm not sure if he's redeemable after destroying the Southlands and creating Mount Doom. I know he didn't do it in
I think there's going to be
particular,
a lot
but
of conflict between Sauron and Adar next
yeah,
season.
for
Like,
sure.
I think, I mean, I think there's going to be the first couple episodes. I think there's going to be that that play for power in Mordor. So, and I'm obviously Adar's not going to make it out of it in one piece, or he'd at least be subjugated to Sauron. But I don't see Sauron doing that, because it's just like Adar technically killed Sauron at one point. So, or at least that's what he says. So, that's supported by what Halbrand said in episode 6. Do you remember me? And he's like, no, should I? Like,
yeah. When they caught him and they tied him up, yeah. So okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's been lovely talking, but we all have things to do. I need to put some food in my belly, and Cheeto has some fatherly stuff to do as well. So I will say it's been very much good fun talking about all of this. I'll have one more comment here from Corey. He freed his people and killed Sauron, delivered them a homeland, salvaged them from summary genocide by the yeah, but he was also trying to, like what he did with the humans was just uncalled for. So,
but also,
also
Sauron's going to just come in and just take that
take
all away
over.
from him. Yeah, he's just going to take all that from Adar. I mean, that's why it's
Yeah.
like, I don't think they're going for the sympathetic. I think that's why he was like, I'm going to let Adar do what he's going to do, because he's basically making my kingdom for me. He's saving me the hassle, like.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to quickly just tell you tomorrow I will have a review. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live or bring out a recording, but it will be on Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. It's a documentary I recently saw on Netflix about a fundamentalist Mormon church. Yeah, well, that's going to be coming out. I might be doing it by myself, or I might be doing it with a fellow member of NerdTube. Keep an eye out for that for tomorrow. Monday, we'll be talking about not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, House of Dragon.
Less
Tuesday,
classy Lord of the Rings is what you mean.
Yeah. Quantum Leap will be on Tuesday. Wednesday we'll be doing Andor, and we'll see what will fit. Sorry, Thursday is Lower Decks. Friday used to be She-Hulk, but we'll see what fits in there, as well as obviously Saturday used to be Lord of the Rings, but we'll see what fits in here. So
and also Tuesday we have our horror fan film coming out, our next one, which is based on Resident Evil, actually. So actually me, Zam, and my girlfriend did that one. So if you guys are into the horror franchises, we have one on the channel right now. This week came out was from Jason Unleashed, and last week was called Scary Movie, but it was a Scream fan film. It's not a comedy, although it kind of probably should have been.
Any wrestling content? Well, we will. At the moment, but things are a little bit dry until Crown Jewel for Saudi, which will happen in Saudi Arabia. So unless obviously there's breaking news like Vince McMahon died or some shit like that, like the way obviously when he stepped down as chairman, that was breaking news. So like massive breaking news, which we tend like Ginger Greek and D Jose, who's part of our group, they tend to talk about all of that. They'll definitely cover that, but if not, it might be Crown Jewel, I'm afraid. But there's always something for everyone here at NerdTube, because we are the greatest YouTube channel you never heard of. Anything more to add, Cousin Cheeto?
No.
Fantastic. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe to us. We'll see you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.